All right, friends, welcome back to Chart Guys How to Trade. Had some wisdom teeth out the other day. I think we're back. I think we're able to do a video. We're going to try to make it through. The purpose of this channel, if you're brand new, is talking about how we actually apply trade theory to chart configurations. So it's one thing to read about or watch a video on or hear about a trading strategy, but then you got to take that information and interpret chart data as you're moving through your trading day and trying to figure out how exactly an experienced trader is going to apply that concept to the data that is developing in front of them. Charting in retrospect is really easy. Anybody can do it. Anyone can talk about a pattern setup and what they would have done. What we want to do here is talk about how we see the charts, how we recognize setups, and how we employed strategies to our own trading benefit. And whenever possible, I show you my own trades here. I talk about stop losses and targets as much as possible. The whole point is education through experience. So what we want to talk about today is something that started on April 27th, and it has been effective up until and including this morning's action on QQQ, this morning being April 29th. So what we're talking about is something we've touched on a little bit before, and that's a broadening formation. And a broadening formation in its most simple terms is when you have a chart that is trending nicely. Let's pretend these are candlesticks. We're going up. We're having some counter trends. We're having some longer term trends. And suddenly we get into a period of volatility where you have a big push to one side and a push to the other side. And suddenly you have a range that has knocked out all the stop losses and market orders and all of the different order book entities that have been built up over the previous range of time. Suddenly we are in relatively, no pun intended, uncharted territory. And it can open up a lot of opportunities for us. And what gets interesting is when our broadening formations tend to last a couple days. And that is certainly what happened on April 27th and up until then, as I said, including today's action. So what we're going to be doing is spending some time talking about QQQ. We're going to be moving through a few different trades. I'm going to try and show you some of those opportunities and what I was thinking about at the time and how I made my trading decisions. Let's take a look at how we got into the day here. All right, so here we are starting the morning off on QQQ. What we're looking for, well, we don't really know what we're looking for. That is part of the fun of charting. But I'm going to let the market do the talking here. We are going to see a quick drop to start off the day on April 27th, and we're looking for basically a 5-minute oversold bounce. I'm going to be watching the 2-minute time frame because this is what I usually pay attention to in the morning. And first of all, I can see we got ourselves a little bit of a low. First thing I think about is a potential for a bear flag. We've had some pressure applied to the downside early on. We see a little bit of an extension there, and we see big volume, possible volume climax. Anytime I see a big surge in volume, I start looking in the opposite direction. And then I'm looking for follow through. Do we get any follow through over the top of this little high? Well, maybe, but we're not going to talk about it too much because that is not the important thing. The important thing that we noticed on this morning was the fact that we lost 339.44 and we didn't see a lot of follow through to follow that break. Now, by itself, is that anything? No, we could just have a trend. We could have a new lower low. There's a lot of possibilities that develop out of this. But what gets even more interesting is that we have ourselves another little low with no follow through. Now my spidey senses are getting picked up a little bit. And I'm wondering what this chart configuration is all about. Why did we hit 342.15, see a sudden drop? And now I'm definitely looking in the opposite direction because we have multiple attempts here where we're hitting lower lows and we're getting higher highs in our 2-minute time frame. So the dedicated downside bulls that we would expect to see here just aren't showing up. So a lack of commitment in one direction is a sign of strength in the opposite direction. Now at this time, we're also over an hour into our trading day. So I'm paying more attention to my other charts. If I go over here, I can see that our first hour of trading has opened up an outside bar. It has built out that big broadening formation that has knocked out all of the supports and resistances that go back in time all the way to the previous morning, most of the day, in fact. So what we can do with this information is we can go and draw a broadening formation area of support and resistance. So to complete that, I grab the high of today's action. So the opening high, go back and look for the highest guy that we've knocked out in recent history. And you know what, that works out to be that candlestick for me. And going back here, I grab the low and we knocked everybody out in the hourly time frame except that low of the day to start. So now we've got what we need to have our broadening formation come into play. Now this is something that I am just watching and waiting on. If we come back down into that range, I might be interested in a little bit of a scalp against that support. If we come up against that resistance, we're also going to be looking for that to act as an area of resistance, because remember, we've cleared out the order book here. There's nothing left other than what we have just established at 340.41 as a possible area of support. So now we're going to pause. We're going to jump ahead a little bit until the point where these broadening formations come back into play. Now, before we do jump ahead, there was one trade that I did take, and that was just the losses 339.29 level. At that point, I had not yet noticed that we had our new broadening formation support. We had really just developed it, but what I was interested was the fact that we hit a higher high without any follow through and a lower low without any follow through, and we more or less just had a non-developing day. The internals sort of had reached a moment of balance, and that certainly was reflected in our price action. So what we would do at that point is go and grab that lower low. As soon as we start to turn around, just like the moment we start to turn around, we take an entry and we'll stop out at a new low. And we'll do that a couple times as we develop a little bit more confidence that we're not seeing follow through to the downside, because again, we're looking for movement to the upside. Now, if I'm doing this, I am going to move my stop up to break even as soon as possible. Ideally, we're not too far away from the low anyway, and my target is probably just going to be a new high, 340.41, or I'm going to be walking at my 2-minute stop loss and just taking those higher lows. So let's go through the day really quickly, see how it develops. I wouldn't get too far there, would I? Right from that low, I would probably stop out right at the loss of this little guy here, and that would be it for this type of trade. So let's jump forward in time. My next point of interest actually occurs tomorrow, or April 28th. All right, we are looking at the 2-minute time frame on the morning of April 28th. Again, we're ready for a fresh day. We're going to see what the market offers for us. And we know from yesterday's trading action, as we can see in the hourly time frame here, we've been going somewhat sideways for most of the afternoon. The big period of volatility sort of took all the excitement out of the day. And we went sideways. We had a couple inside bars that follow through. And now we are opening toward the lower end of the range. And let's see what happens right out of the gate. First of all, we see some bearish pressure, not unexpected. We tend to see that in both directions. And then right away, we start to see a little bit of our broadening formation support coming into play again. So the moment we see that coming into play, our spidey senses are tingling again. We're ready and we're interested, and we're a little curious to see what sort of action this broadening formation is going to bring for us. Now, this is indeed going to be a nice level on the broadening formation. We're going to be looking for a quick trend change and a quick reversal here to prove to us that bulls are actually interested in doing something to the upside. So what we can actually do here is go right into the 1-minute time frame, and we can start asking these bulls what they intend to do by watching the price action of their trades. So here is our initial little bounce. Right now, this is nothing more than a little bit of a flag. What we can do is go and grab that high and look for a trend change. What we're interested in is going to be a flush under a low without any follow through, proving to us that there's broadening formation support here still, and then looking for a break over 339.09. Now, if that comes to pass, what we're going to be doing is looking for a long entry. The aggressive approach should be as soon as we start to tick back up and we have a new low. The conservative approach would be once we have pushed up above 339.09 and look for the bulls to push the price to a new high. So right away in the morning, 1-minute time frame, there's our quick flush. As this is developing, as soon as we get a new lower low, that's when we start to get interested in that trade. It's a little bit low. It is high risk, absolutely. We can see a low, a little bit of a high, and then we can get stopped out right away. So you need to adjust your risk threshold and just understand that without broadening formation support, this is a really bad idea. With broadening formation support, it's an aggressive idea. There is more conservative plays, absolutely. But if you're confident in your broadening formation support, as this one has proven to us as being effective, I'm a lot happier with these trades. So I take my entry almost as soon as we start to turn around. My stop is going to be a new low, and the conservative's entry is going to be 339.09. Now on this particular one, I'm again watching for 2-minute higher lows for a trend change for my exit. I'm just walking my exits up, and let's take a look at what that would look like on the 2-minute time frame. So at this point, I'm in. As the candle adjusts over the next minute, we break to new highs over top of 339.09. So we're happy with our entry. And now what we're going to be doing is walking up these stops. So there is a little bit of a 2-minute higher low. I can go right there. We're going to keep this party moving. Bulls are happy and moving pretty effectively. So we're going to be waiting for another bit of 2-minute consolidation. And we do see that come into pass as a little bit of a 2-minute inside bar. We break bullish outside of that. Great. I got myself another 2-minute higher low. So this is what I would be doing for the majority of the day, ideally up until we hit a major target. I would be looking for an exit if we got up to this broadening formation resistance, because remember, we haven't really established much of anything out here. Maybe we got 340.90 as an area of resistance. That was the high of the run from the midday the day before. And I happen to know it just coincides with a little bit of a pullback. I just noticed that now. In fact, I should have been paying more attention. Always going to watch your intraday levels for support. So stopped out there. That's the type of entry that we like to see. And we need to adjust our charts because trading view tends to get a little bit screwy wonky sometimes with our formations. All right, so now we are back in our area of support. Beautiful example of our trend coming back into play again. Now, if you hadn't taken advantage of the broadening formation support on the first attempt, well, my friends, you had another opportunity heading into the mid-afternoon. So I'm going to skip ahead to show you where that comes into play. I'm just going to rapid fire click here and we're going to get ourselves all the way down. Now, what we're interested in for these broadening formation supports, again, is going to be an approach to low of day. And we're going to be looking for a lack of commitment to that direction. If we see a break of low of day, we're actually going to be looking for that to happen, and we're going to want to see a flush, and we're going to want to see a lack of volume on that flush. That's going to be the real interesting thing. So in the chart guys chat room at this point, I know the broadening formation support is here. I know we've got 338.51. Ideally, we're going to get a little flush below that into broadening formation support. I'm going to wait for those bulls to break. I'm going to wait for them to turn, and as soon as we start to get a little bit of life, I'm going to try that approach again. I'm going to try and get an entry. I'm going to be willing, I am willing to get stopped out almost immediately because I am trying to catch something that really has no tangible area of support. In fact, we are below our area of support, and all we have to work with is this loose concept of a broadening formation coming into play. Will it come into play? Perhaps not, but we don't want to have that risk on the table where the bottom could just fall out and not have a stop loss there. We need to wait for a little bit of a bull push to give us something to work with. So why don't we try, let's have a little fun with it here and see if we can't find this on the 15-second time frame. So again, what we're looking for is going to be a loss of this 338.51 and the bulls to push back to the upside. So let's move forward here on the 15-second time frame. We are coming down. And again, we want to see, well, we expect to see a loss of the 338. We expect to see some volume trip our lows. And then what we want to see is a lack of follow through. Anytime we break a horizontal support level, you are going to trip some key supports. So that is what we expect to see. A little bit of volume. We don't want to see a ton of volume. We see a little bit of a high. We see some pushing. Now we get another little high. We have now got a low underneath horizontal support, under broadening formation support, another bear attempt, and bulls are pushing back up, getting a higher high over 338.51, this candlestick here. So the moment we see that, we can go ahead and place an entry, and I would stop out at 338.32. I'm not giving back anything. In fact, this is already a 20-cent spread between our low and our high, can be substantial for a lot of people. So we don't want to give up too much risk if we are just going to drop right back below. Because you can get into a situation where you try to make this happen 5, 6, 7 times, you're going to chew through your commissions like crazy. I'm going to give this 1, 2, maybe 3 attempts. But I know that there is a good possibility that I'm going to be giving away 3 sets of commission and a little bit of profit opportunity. I'm okay with that, but I'm going to stop after that, absolutely. So here we are. We have our entry. 338.32 is our stop. And what we're trying to do is catch that broadening formation support and ride it back up into resistance. Now remember, it's all about this magical little line. As soon as we can, we move our stop loss to break even. We're not giving anything back on this trade. And what we're going to do is just watch ourselves and look for those 2-minute higher lows as our exit opportunities. So we're going to jump back to the 2-minute time frame right now. And we just got our bottom. We're happy with that. We are stop loss at 338.33. I've now moved my stop loss up to break even, and I'm going to let these bulls do their thing. So this trade, I believe, went okay. You know, it didn't have the crazy upside that we that I would like to have seen. And we ended up actually going sideways for a little while. We slowly built up these 2-minute higher lows, but didn't do a lot with it. So with that lack of upside commitment, I started to get, dare I say, a little bit bored. It didn't do what I thought it was going to do. So as soon as we hit one of these higher points, I unloaded a little bit. I sold half. I moved the rest to break even. And then as this moved along even further, I got even more tedious. And I thought, this isn't really doing what I would like it to do. So I moved my stop up to, I believe that was one of these 2-minute higher lows here. I don't have the data in front of me. And what ended up happening was we had an FOMC call that came in. We saw some wild volatility in both sides, and I ended up getting stopped out as that sort of kicked into action. We should see that show up here in the chart in a few seconds here. There we go. That was that FOMC announcement, and it just spiked to one side, stopped me out, and that was that. So let's clean up our chart a little bit. I want to get rid of everything except the broadening formation. So 1 second. All right, so pretty impressive example of using broadening formations over and over and over again, getting these lower lows without any follow through. And in this example, even on the FOMC volatility, we had a big spike to the downside. So now if I hadn't been impatient, and if I had just left my stop loss at break even, and if I had let the market decide what it wanted to do with the remaining position that I have. Now remember, I went heavy in here, I sold half up here, I could have let my stop loss and I could have let the market decide for me what was going to happen. And had I done that, we would have had a pretty good little opportunity here. It would have been sideways, mostly. It would have been choppy, sure. But you know what happens? I'm not going to jump to this morning. Jump complete. For context, I did change the chart a little bit. Here's our low, here's our low, here's that FOMC volatility. If we had let this ride out without getting stopped out at the end of day, and if we had swung it overnight, which is a whole other ballgame, we would have awoken this morning to find the QQQ bulls driving the price all the way up to what? Broadening formation resistance. Amazing. We open up, we smack right into that resistance, and we start to drop. Profit taking is a real thing and a real opportunity for us. Now, does the magic stop there? No, it does not. We get ourselves yet one more opportunity to the downside as we approach and actually blow through our lows, and we blow through, well, I shouldn't say we blow through, we come down, we hesitate, get a little bit oversold, and then we see an amazing recovery by the general market as the SPY bulls and QQQ bulls push all the way back up in a massive V-shaped recovery. Let's look at it on the 15-minute time frame to speed things up a little bit. Look at that. It was absolutely incredible today, and we closed strong, and we found ourselves once again able to rely on our broadening formation support. Albeit this time, I will admit freely that I got stopped out 3 times today on TQQQ trying to capture this bottom. I have a general rule. I think I alluded to about 5 minutes ago. I'm happy to get stopped out. I know this is a high risk maneuver. I know I have an intangible area of support, and I tried to get in on this occasion. And then where are we here? I tried to get in over here before we touched support. And you know what the frustrating part was? Each time I was profitable. And each time I was able to move my stop loss up. Luckily, I got stopped out for very little. But if I make 3 mistakes on a single trade on one day, I'm done trading that ticker. I need to move on and reassess because you can get into a bad psychological tailspin, so to speak. One opportunity here, another opportunity here, stopped out, another opportunity here, stopped out, and then the bulls decided to run away with it. So, beautiful example. Broadening formation support. Do I expect this to come into play tomorrow? I would be very surprised. I would be very surprised if we did see it come into play. Things have developed quite a bit since then. Let's go look at our broadening formation support and resistance over here. Here we are still relying on this formation. Can it come into play? Yes. Am I going to leave it on my chart? Yes, I'm going to leave it here until it no longer functions as an area of support and resistance, or perhaps we build ourselves a new formation inside this range because yes, this will develop into infinity and eventually we're just unlikely to run into it in the short term. I'm okay with running up to 356, but I'd rather not run down to 216 or 316. Not unless I got myself a nice SQQ hedge. All right, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about broadening formations, please let me know. Happy to do the research. I'm still learning these. As always, I am an internal student of the charts, and I encourage you to have the same mindset. And that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. What are you doing? Uh-oh. Hi, buddy. All right. Ow, don't bite my knee. Good stuff.